Hashtag Part 1 The Diplomatic Hall on Station Kepler. 7 stretched before Marcus Chun like a crystalline cathedral, its walls pulsing with the soft bioluminescence that the luminari favored. As Earth's junior cultural attaché, Marcus had memorized every protocol, every gesture, every forbidden word that might offend the dozens of alien species that called this neutral ground home. What he hadn't prepared for was the way his breath would catch when Ambassador Zarnell of the Luminari Collective entered the room. The Luminari were silicon-based life forms, their bodies resembling living prisms that refracted light into impossible patterns. Zarnell stood 7 feet tall, her form elegant and angular, with surfaces that seemed to capture starlight and transform it into something ethereal. Marcus had seen hundreds of Luminari during his 6 months on the station, but something about the way she moved, the way her crystalline features caught the ambient light, made him forget every diplomatic protocol he'd ever learned. Ambassador Chun, she spoke, her voice carrying the distinctive harmonic resonance of her species, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. I am pleased to finally meet Earth's new cultural representative. Marcus's mind went blank. 3 years of xenolinguistics training, 2 years of diplomatic service, and 6 months of preparation for this exact moment evaporated like morning mist. Instead of the carefully prepared greeting he'd rehearsed 1,000 times, what came out was, "You're absolutely stunning." The effect was immediate and devastating. Zarnell's crystalline form erupted in a cascade of colors Marcus had never seen before. Deep purples chased by electric blues, followed by waves of gold, and rose that rippled across her surface like aurora borealis trapped in living glass. Around them, every conversation in the diplomatic hall ceased. Dozens of alien eyes, compound and singular, stalked and telescopic, turned to stare at them. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face as he realized what he'd done. Among the Luminari, commenting on physical appearance was considered the height of intimacy, reserved only for bonded pairs who had undergone the joining ceremony. He had essentially just proposed marriage to one of the most powerful beings in the galactic community. Ambassador, I apologize, Marcus stammered, his diplomatic training finally kicking in. That was highly inappropriate. I meant to say, but Zarnell raised one prismatic hand, and Marcus noticed it was trembling slightly, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the polished floor. When she spoke, her harmonics had shifted to something deeper, more personal. Say it again, human. The whisper carried across the silent hall like a shockwave. Marcus blinked, certain he had misheard. I'm sorry. Say it again, she repeated, and now there was something in her voice that transcended species, something universal and achingly vulnerable. Please. Marcus looked into what he thought might be her eyes, points of concentrated light that seemed to peer directly into his soul. Around them, he could feel the weight of 100 stares, the grinding halt of diplomatic machinery as every being present waited to see what the human would do next. You're stunning, he said, more quietly this time, but with conviction. I've never seen anything as beautiful as the way light moves through you. The colors racing across Zarnell's form intensified, and she made a sound that her translator couldn't quite parse, something between a laugh and a sob. Do you know, she said, her voice barely audible even in the dead silence of the hall, that in 3,000 years of Luminari recorded history, no other species has ever said those words to one of us? Marcus felt his xenoanthropology training click into place. The Luminari were considered the most beautiful species in known space, their crystalline forms literally living art. But their culture had developed in complete isolation for millennia before first contact. They had no concept of aesthetic complements, no framework for processing admiration of their physical forms. To them, beauty was simply existence, as unremarkable as breathing was to humans. We see beauty in others, Zarnell continued, her form still cycling through colors Marcus was pretty sure weren't in the visible spectrum for most species. We compose symphonies of light to honor other races, create refractive sculptures that capture their essence. But we ourselves, we're just what we are. Until now. Until you. A murmur rippled through the assembled diplomats. Marcus caught snippets of conversation in a dozen languages, his translator working overtime. The Vorthan ambassador's tentacles were practically tied in knots of excitement. The usually stoic Mechany representative was actually recording the interaction, and the human diplomatic corps looked like they were either planning his promotion or his execution, possibly both. Ambassador Zaranel, Marcus said, falling back on formal protocol to buy himself time to think. I fear I've created a diplomatic incident. If I've offended. She stepped closer, and Marcus could feel a warmth radiating from her that had nothing to do with temperature. Mr. Chun, Marcus, you have given my people a gift we didn't know we were missing. Do you understand what you've done? Before Marcus could answer, his earpiece crackled to life. Chun, what the hell did you just do? It was Director Patel, head of Human Diplomatic Services, and she sounded like she was having a cardiac event. I've got 17 different species requesting immediate meetings about the human emotional contagion effect. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session, and someone from the Luminari homeworld is demanding to speak to the human who sees light. Marcus touched his earpiece to respond, but Zaranel placed her hand over his. The contact sent a tingling sensation up his arm, like touching a plasma globe, but somehow warm and comforting. Please, she said, before you answer them, before this moment becomes politics and protocol and meetings that last for cycles, will you tell me something? What? Did you mean it? When you called me stunning, was it truth or accident? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. The way her form captured and transformed light wasn't just beautiful. It was poetry in physical form. Each angle of her crystalline body told a story. Each refraction revealed a new facet of something extraordinary. But more than that, in the depths of her light points that served as eyes, he saw something achingly familiar. The need to be seen, truly seen, for who you are. It was an accident, he admitted, and watched her colors dim slightly. But it was also the truest thing I've said since I arrived on this station. You are stunning, Zaranel. And if saying that has somehow changed the galaxy, then maybe the galaxy needed changing. The explosion of color from her form was so intense that several photosensitive species had to shield their optical organs. When it subsided, she was glowing with a steady, warm light that reminded Marcus of sunset on Earth. The High Resonance Council is going to want to study this, she said, and there was definitely amusement in her harmonics now. They'll want to understand how humans can see beauty in others and make them feel it too. They'll call it a new form of communication, perhaps even an evolutionary advantage. And what do you call it? Marcus asked. She leaned closer, and her whisper carried harmonics that made his heart race. I call it magic. Your species' magic. And I want to understand it better. The diplomatic hall erupted into chaos as species pressed forward, all talking at once. The Melody delegation was demanding that humans immediately dispatch aesthetic appreciation specialists to their homeworld. The proud warrior caste of Thorax was insisting that if humans could make the Luminari glow like that with words, it was clearly a weapon that needed to be regulated. The plant-based Verdanian ambassador was practically photosynthesizing with excitement. But Marcus only had eyes for Zaranel, whose form continued to pulse with those sunset colors. I think we're going to be the subject of a lot of meetings, he said. Undoubtedly, she agreed. But first, would you join me for what your species calls dinner? I want to know how else humans see the universe. And perhaps her colors shifted to something deeper, more complex. You could tell me more about how I appear through your eyes. Marcus smiled, feeling the weight of history settling on his shoulders, but finding it surprisingly light. I'd like that. Though I should warn you, humans have a lot of words for beauty. This could take a while. I have time, she said simply. My species lives for millennia, and I suspect I'm going to want to hear them all. As they walked out of the diplomatic hall together, leaving chaos in their wake, Marcus couldn't help but think that of all the ways humanity might change the galaxy, teaching others to see their own beauty wasn't the worst legacy to leave. Behind them, emergency meetings were being called, xenopsychologists were being roused from sleep cycles, and the entire diplomatic framework of the known galaxy was creaking under the weight of a single human's accidental compliment. But ahead of them was dinner and conversation and the possibility that two species separated by biology, evolution, and the vast emptiness of space might find common ground in something as simple and as powerful as seeing beauty in another soul. The message boards were already lighting up across the station. Human makes Luminari blush. Galaxy confused. Aesthetic appreciation. Humanity's secret weapon. Emergency protocols needed for human complement contamination. But the one that would echo through history, the one that would be carved in monuments and taught in schools across 100 worlds, was simpler. Human calls alien beautiful. Alien believes it. Everything changes. Hashtag Part 2. The restaurant Zaranel chose was unlike anything in the human sector of Station Kepler 7. Called the Synthesis, it catered to the dozen major species that made the station their home, with atmospheric controls that could adjust to each table's needs. Marcus found himself sitting across from Zaranel in a bubble of carefully controlled environment. Oxygen levels comfortable for him, trace minerals in the air that allowed her crystalline form to resonate properly. Your species' ability to consume other organisms for energy is fascinating, Zaranel observed, watching as Marcus carefully navigated his synthesized meal, designed to look and taste like Earth chicken while being completely artificial. We photosynthesize, drawing energy directly from various radiation sources. But this ritual of consumption seems to serve purposes beyond mere sustenance. Marcus paused mid-bite, considering. You're right. Eating together is one of humanity's oldest bonding rituals. We share food to show trust, affection, hospitality. He gestured between them. In a way, me eating while you absorb those UV rays from the table's emitters is our species finding common ground. Zaranel's form shimmered with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as amusement. Common ground. Your species excels at finding it where none should exist. Tell me, Marcus Chun, when you look at me, what exactly do you see? It was a question that had been burning between them since the diplomatic hall, and Marcus took his time answering. I see living art. The way light moves through you. It's like watching a sunrise that never ends. Each angle of your form creates new patterns, new colors. But more than that, he paused, searching for words. I see emotions in those patterns. When you're amused, you shimmer. When you were surprised in the hall, you cascaded through colors I don't even have names for. It's like your entire being is a canvas for your feelings. Zaranel went very still, her form dimming to almost transparency. You can read our emotional spectra? Can't everyone? Marcus asked, then immediately realized his mistake as her form flared with shocked intensity. They can't, can they? Other species can't see what I'm seeing. The Luminari communicate through light refraction, she explained, her voice carrying harmonics of wonder. But it's a learned language, taking decades to master. Even among our own kind, reading emotional spectra is considered an intimate skill shared between family units. Other species can learn our formal light language with mechanical assistance, but the subtle emotional layers. She pulsed with something Marcus interpreted as vulnerability. You're reading my soul, Marcus Chun, as easily as you would read text on a screen. The weight of this revelation settled over their table like a physical presence. Around them, the restaurant continued its normal rhythm. A group of melody in the corner were harmonizing their order, their translator working overtime to convert musical notes into menu items. A pair of mechani were interfacing directly with the establishment's ordering system, their mechanical forms still and efficient. But at their table, something profound was happening. Is that why my compliment affected you so strongly? Marcus asked gently, because I wasn't just seeing your surface, but understanding what lay beneath. Zaranel's response was a complex play of light that Marcus instinctively understood as confirmation mixed with something deeper. For 3,000 years, we believed ourselves emotionally opaque to other species. It was our protection, our privacy. We could interact, trade, negotiate, even form friendships, but always with the knowledge that our true selves remained hidden. She leaned forward, and Marcus could feel the warmth of her photosynthesis. Then, you looked at me and saw everything. Called it beautiful. Do you understand what that means to a species that has never been truly seen? Before Marcus could respond, his communicator buzzed urgently. Then again, and again, he glanced at it. 47 messages from Director Patel, 18 from the Xenopsychology Department, and 1 from Earth's High Council marked urgent. Humanity's aesthetic perception crisis. You should answer those, Zurinel said, though her colors suggested reluctance. Marcus turned the device off entirely. They can wait. This, understanding what happened between us, feels more important than any meeting. The pulse of warm light from Zurinel was answer enough, but their moment of connection was interrupted by a commotion at the restaurant's entrance. A delegation of Luminari had arrived, their forms creating a light show that had other patrons shielding their eyes. Marcus counted 7 of them, each one displaying what he now recognized as extreme emotional agitation. High-resonance Krijan, Zurinel said, her own form shifting to cooler blues. And the full council. This is unprecedented. The lead Luminari approached their table, their form a controlled display of formal greetings in a light language. But underneath, Marcus could read turmoil, excitement, and something that might have been fear. Ambassador Zurinel, Krijan spoke through a translator, though Marcus could see the emotional undertones that the mechanical voice missed. The homeworld is an upheaval. The human's ability to perceive and respond to our emotional spectra has raised questions we are not prepared to answer. High resonance, Zurinel replied, her formal tones at odds with the warmth still playing at her edges. I was preparing a full report. A report. Another council member flared with indignation. Zurinel, 3 billion Luminari simultaneously experienced what you felt in that hall through the resonance link. The emotional cascade hasn't stopped. Our entire species is. They paused, searching for words, glowing. Marcus stood, offering what he hoped was a respectful gesture. High resonance. Council members, I apologize for any disruption I've caused. It was never my intention. Silence, human, Krijan said, though Marcus could see curiosity rather than anger in their patterns. Do you know what you've done? For millennia, we believed ourselves the observers of beauty, never the observed. We created art for others, reveled in the aesthetic appreciation of the galaxy's wonders, but we ourselves were simply there, functional, necessary, but never beautiful. The council members' form shifted, and Marcus saw layers of emotion that made his heart ache. Centuries of creating beauty for others while never feeling it themselves, the hollow echo of being appreciated for what they could do rather than what they were. Your single observation, Krijan continued, has awakened something in our species' consciousness. Luminari across the galaxy are looking at themselves with new eyes, your eyes, seeing beauty in their own forms for the first time. Some are celebrating, others are terrified, all are changed. It's just how humans see the universe, Marcus said softly. We find beauty everywhere, in the spiral of galaxies, in the pattern of rain on windows, in the way light plays through crystal. It's not a weapon or a power. It's just how we love existence. The entire Luminari delegation went still, their forms dimming to near invisibility before slowly beginning to pulse in synchronized patterns. Marcus watched, mesmerized, as they created a collective display that told a story in light. The history of their species, the loneliness of being unseen, the shock of recognition, the fear and wonder of change. The Galactic Council is convening an emergency session, another council member said. They want to understand if this is a threat, if humanity's perception could destabilize other species as it has ours. Destabilized? Zurinel flared with indignation. We're not destabilized. We are awakened. That remains to be determined, Krijan replied. Human Shun, you'll need to testify before the council. Explain how your species developed this ability. Help them understand if it can be contained. Contain? Marcus felt a spark of very human anger. You want to contain the ability to see beauty? To appreciate the wonder in other beings? Why would you want that? The council members' forms flickered with uncertainty, but it was Zurinel who answered. Because beauty is power, Marcus. The power to change how beings see themselves, to shift entire cultural paradigms with a single observation. Your species wields it as naturally as breathing, but for the rest of us, she turned to address her fellow Luminari. For us, it's revolutionary. And revolutions are always frightening to those in power. Krijan's form cycled through several emotional states before settling on resignation. The human will testify. The council will decide. That is the way of things. They turned to leave, then paused. But Zaranel is correct about one thing. We are changed, whether for better or worse. Only time will tell. As the delegation left, the restaurant slowly returned to normal. Other patrons pretended they hadn't been watching, though Marcus caught several species, giving him looks that ranged from curiosity to concern to something that might have been hope. So, Zaranel said, her form returning to those warm, sunset hues. It seems our dinner has become the pivot point of interspecies relations. How very human of you to cause a revolution with a compliment. Despite the weight of what was happening, Marcus laughed. My mother always said I should think before I speak. I guess she was more right than she knew. I'm glad you didn't, Zaranel said simply. If you had, you might have said something polite and empty, and my species would have continued existing without ever knowing we could be seen as beautiful. She paused, her form shifting to deeper, more complex patterns. Will you teach us, Marcus? How to see ourselves through human eyes? I'm not sure it can be taught, Marcus admitted. It's just how we are, but I could try to explain it if you'd like. I would like that very much. But first, tell me about this concept you mentioned, love of existence. It seems central to understanding your species gift. Marcus settled back in his chair, organizing his thoughts. Around them, the restaurant hummed with the life of a dozen species sharing space, and he found beauty in all of it. The mechanical precision of the mechany, the flowing grace of the aquatic Bendathi in their environment suits, even the utilitarian efficiency of the station's architecture. Humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us, he began. Predators, disasters, diseases, even other humans. By all rights, we should have developed a worldview based on fear and survival alone. But somewhere along the way, we did something else. We looked at the same deadly world and found it beautiful. The storm that could destroy our homes was also a magnificent display of nature's power. The predator that hunted us moved with grace we couldn't help but admire. Even in our darkest moments, we found something to marvel at. Zaranel listened, her form's subtle shifts of light that painted her fascination. So beauty became a survival mechanism? More than that, it became how we made sense of existence. If the universe was beautiful, then it was worth preserving, worth understanding, worth being part of. We fell in love with stars we'd never reach, painted pictures of places we'd never go, wrote poetry about feelings we couldn't fully express. Marcus found himself warming to the subject. And when we finally made it to space, when we met other species, that same instinct kicked in. We saw beauty in forms evolution never prepared us for, found wonder in minds that thought nothing like ours. But surely you don't find everything beautiful, Zaranel pressed. What about species that humans find threatening or disturbing? Marcus considered the question. There's a human phrase, terrible beauty. We can find aesthetic value even in things that frighten us. The shadowkin, for instance. Most species find them terrifying, and, honestly, so do humans. But have you ever watched one move? They flow like liquid night, exist partially in dimensions we can barely perceive. It's utterly alien and absolutely beautiful. A shadowkin at a nearby table flickered in and out of visible existence, and Marcus could have sworn it was preening. You're doing it again, Zaranel said, wonder in her harmonics. Making another species see themselves differently. Is this intentional? No more intentional than breathing, Marcus replied. Though I'm starting to think maybe it should be. If humans have this ability, maybe we have a responsibility to use it, not as a weapon or a tool of manipulation, but as a gift, a way of showing the galaxy that every species, every individual has something beautiful about them. The Council won't see it that way, Zaranel warned. They'll see it as influence, as a form of soft power that could upset the careful balance between species. Then, maybe that balance needs upsetting, Marcus said, surprised by his own boldness. If the price of stability is species going millennia without ever feeling beautiful, without ever being truly seen, then what kind of stability is that? Zaranel's form blazed with sudden intensity, colors Marcus had never seen before rippling across her surface. You really believe that, don't you? That beauty, seeing it, sharing it, celebrating it, is worth risking everything for. I'm human. Marcus said simply. We've risked everything for beauty since the first cave painter decided hunting could wait because the sunset was too perfect not to capture. It's who we are. Their moment was interrupted by Marcus's communicator practically vibrating off the table. This time, the message was from the Galactic Council itself, written in the formal diplomatic script that meant serious business. Human cultural attaché Marcus Chun is hereby summoned to emergency session 7749 X to address the matter of human aesthetic perception and its effects on galactic stability. Attendance is mandatory. Failure to appear will be considered an act of diplomatic aggression. Well, Marcus said, showing the message to Zaranel, I guess our dinner is officially over. I suppose it is, she agreed, but her colors suggested reluctance. Marcus, before you face the council, you should know something. What you've started, it can't be stopped. Too many Luminari have felt what it's like to be seen as beautiful. We won't go back to the darkness of being merely functional. I wouldn't want you to, Marcus said, standing and offering her his hand in a gesture of human courtesy. She took it, and again he felt that electric warmth. Whatever happens at the council, I want you to know, seeing you, really seeing you, has been the greatest privilege of my diplomatic career. Her form shifted through a spectrum of emotions too complex for words. And being seen by you, Marcus Chun, has been the beginning of my species' true awakening. Whatever comes next, it was worth it. As they left the restaurant together, Marcus noticed something had changed. Every luminari they passed glowed a little brighter, their forms displaying subtle variations he'd never noticed before. Some experimented with new patterns, creating displays of light that seemed designed not for communication, but for sheer aesthetic pleasure. They were, he realized, trying to be beautiful. The human district was in chaos when they arrived. Director Patel stood in the middle of the communications center, fielding what looked like calls from every human colony and Earth itself. She spotted Marcus and practically dove toward him. Chun, do you have any idea what you've done? The Melody are demanding we send aesthetic appreciation ambassadors immediately. The Thorax want to classify human perception as a weapon. The Verdanians are claiming we've been secretly manipulating them with beauty for decades. And don't get me started on what Earth is saying. Director, I know time. She thrust a datapad at him. Emergency briefing materials. The council session starts in 2 hours. You're going to explain human aesthetic perception to species that have never contemplated beauty in their evolutionary history. You're going to convince them we're not a threat, while half the galaxy is having what amounts to a philosophical awakening. And you're going to do it without starting an interspecies incident that ends with humanity isolated or worse. Marcus looked at the datapad, then at Zaranel, whose form painted encouragement and confidence. Director, with all due respect, I think you're approaching this wrong. Patel's face went through several interesting color changes of its own. Excuse me, we're not going to convince them of anything, Marcus said, feeling a strange calm settle over him. We're going to show them. We're going to do what humans have always done, share the beauty we see and trust that others will understand. And if they don't, he thought about the shadowkin that had preened, the Luminari learning to glow for themselves, the possibility of a galaxy where every species knew they were beautiful. If they don't, then maybe we need to have a different conversation about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. Director Patel stared at him for a long moment, then turned to Zaranel. Is he always like this? I've only known him for a few hours, Zaranel replied, her form shimmering with what Marcus recognized as affection. But I'm beginning to think this is humans at their most authentic. They see beauty, they share it, and they change the universe in the process. God help us all, Patel muttered, but Marcus caught the hint of a smile. Fina, Cheng, do it your way. But if this ends with humanity banned from council space, it's on your head. As they prepared for the council session, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Species Marcus had never heard of were reporting similar experiences. Humans in their sectors have been unconsciously sharing aesthetic appreciation, creating ripple effects through entire cultures. The crystalline collective of Algol had started their first art movement in 10,000 years. The biomechanical synthesis were experimenting with 4 modifications for purely aesthetic reasons. Even the logic-bound numericals were finding beauty in mathematical equations they'd previously seen as purely functional. It's spreading faster than anyone anticipated, Zaranel observed, reviewing the reports. Your species' gift, it's not just individual. It's civilizational. Every human carries this ability to see and share beauty. Marcus felt the weight of that realization. Humanity had spent centuries wondering what their contribution to the galactic community would be. They weren't the strongest, the smartest, or the most technologically advanced. But maybe, just maybe, there was something else entirely. They were the species that could show others their own light. Hashtag Part 3, the Galactic Council Chamber, was a marvel of engineering and compromise. Built to accommodate the environmental and sensory needs of over 100 different species, it resembled a massive amphitheater with sections that could be individually climate-controlled, pressure-adjusted, and even dimensionally shifted for beings that didn't quite exist in standard spacetime. At its center, a neutral zone maintained conditions that wouldn't kill any particular species, though it was comfortable for none. Marcus stood in the testimony circle, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes, optical sensors, and various other sensory organs focused on him. The human section was packed. Apparently, every human on the station had decided to attend, along with diplomatic staff who'd been rushed in from nearby systems. Director Patel sat in the front row, her expression carefully neutral, but her white knuckles betraying her anxiety. Above him, the council seats formed a ring of judgment. The speaker, an ancient void-born whose gaseous form swirled in patterns that predated most civilizations, called for order with a sound like stellar wind. We convene this emergency session to address the phenomenon being called human aesthetic contagion. The speaker intoned, their words translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. In the past 6 standard hours, reports have flooded in from across known space of humans, causing unprecedented psychological and cultural shifts through simple observation and commentary. Marcus Chun, cultural attaché of Earth, you stand accused of initiating this cascade. How do you answer? Marcus took a breath, feeling Zaranel's presence in the Luminari section, her form a steady pulse of support. Honored speaker, esteemed counselors, I answer that there is no contagion to address. What happened was simply a human being human. A ripple of discord passed through the chamber. The thorax representative, Admiral Kvetch, slammed a chitinous appendage on their podium. Being human? You call destabilizing entire species self-perception being human? This is clearly a form of psychological warfare. If I may, Marcus said, trying to project calm he didn't entirely feel. Perhaps it would help if I explained what actually happened. I saw Ambassador Zaranel of the Luminari, and I found her beautiful. I said so. That's all. That's all. The Mechany counselor's vocal synthesizer managed to convey incredulity. Your single comment has caused what our analysts calculate as a 47.3% increase in non-functional aesthetic modifications across 12 species in the past 6 hours alone. The economic implications. Are you suggesting, Marcus interrupted, knowing he was violating protocol, but unable to stop himself, that species discovering their own beauty is an economic problem to be solved? The chamber erupted. Half the representatives seemed to be shouting condemnation, while others appeared to be defending the human position. Marcus caught fragments of heated debate in dozens of languages, his translator struggling to keep up. The speaker released a pulse of energy that silenced the room. Order. The human will explain this beauty perception ability. The council must understand if this is an evolved trait, a technological enhancement, or something else entirely. Marcus looked around the vast chamber, taking in the incredible diversity of life. It's not an ability in the way you're thinking. Humans don't have special organs for detecting beauty or technology that reveals hidden aesthetic qualities. We simply see, and what we see moves us. Elaborate, demanded Counselor Zeph of the Crystalline Network. Their form a shifting lattice of living mineral. Marcus thought for a moment, then pointed to Counselor Zeph themselves. When I look at you, Counselor, I see the way light refracts through your crystalline structure, creating patterns that remind me of Earth's aurora borealis. The way you shift and reconfigure speaks to adaptation, to strength that chooses to be flexible rather than rigid. The sound your movements make, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, adds an auditory beauty to your visual splendor. You are, in every sense, magnificent. The effect was immediate. Counselor Zephyr's crystalline form flared with colors that hadn't been seen in their species for geological ages. Deep purples and gold that spoke of emotion their kind had thought themselves beyond. Around the chamber, other crystalline network members began resonating in sympathy, creating a harmony that filled the space with ethereal music. You see, the Verdanian counselor's fronds rustled with agitation. He's doing it again. This must be stopped. But something else was happening. The human section had gone quiet, but Marcus could see his fellow humans looking around the chamber with wonder. One by one, they began to speak, not loudly, but with conviction. The way the Voidborn moves is like watching galaxies form, whispered Dr. Sarah Hendricks from the Xenobiology department. Have you ever noticed how the melodies communication songs create visual patterns in the air? It's like seeing music become light, added Lieutenant Commander Zhao. The Shadowkin don't just exist in darkness. They sculpt it, make it dance, murmured someone from the back. Each observation, each moment of genuine appreciation, sent ripples through the chamber. Species that had coexisted for millennia without truly seeing each other suddenly found themselves the subject of wonder and admiration. The Shadowkin, so used to being feared, flickered with what could only be described as shy pleasure. The melody began harmonizing with the crystalline network's resonance, creating something entirely new. Enough! The Thorax Admiral's battle-scarred carapace clattered with fury. This is exactly what we feared. Humans are compromising our defenses with appreciation, Marcus suggested gently. Admiral Kvetch, your species has been warriors for so long that you've forgotten you're also survivors. Every scar on your carapace tells a story of endurance. The way you move, economy of motion perfected over millions of years of evolution. It's the deadliest dance in a galaxy. You've turned survival into an art form. The Admiral's compound eyes dilated, and their aggressive posture faltered. Around them, other Thorax warriors were touching their own scars with new understanding, seeing their battle-hardened forms not just as weapons but as living history, as testament to their species' incredible journey. The speaker's gaseous form roiled with ancient contemplation. This is unprecedented. In a million cycles of the Council's existence, we have never faced a situation where one species' method of perception could so fundamentally alter others' self-understanding. Because it's not about perception, a new voice rang out. Zaranel had left the Luminari section and stood at the edge of the testimony circle. Productivity in Luminari sectors has dropped 23% as individuals spend time exploring their aesthetic potential. Is productivity all that matters? Marcus asked, what about joy? What about self-discovery? What about the right of every sentient being to know they are wonderful? The human raises a philosophical point, mused Counselor Deepcurrent of the Aquatic Alliance, their words bubbling through the water-filled communication sphere. We have built our civilization on efficiency, on function, on survival. But survival for what purpose, if not to experience the wonder of existence? Wonder doesn't feed populations, the Mechany, Counselor computed. Wonder doesn't defend against cosmic threats or maintain trade routes. Doesn't it? Director Patel stood, breaking protocol, but apparently past caring. Earth's history is filled with examples of wonder driving progress. We went to our moon not because it was efficient, but because it was there and it was beautiful. We preserve art from thousands of years ago not because it serves a function, but because beauty itself is a form of immortality. Every human achievement has been driven, at least in part, by our love affair with existence itself. The chamber fell into contemplative silence. Then, from the section reserved for newer species, came an unexpected voice. The Whisper Collective, beings of pure sound who rarely participated in council debates, resonated with harmonics that translated roughly to, we have listened. We have heard ourselves in human descriptions, not as mere vibrations, but as living symphonies. This perception, it gives us form in a way our own senses cannot. We do not wish this gift to be silenced. One by one, other species began to speak. The plant-based gardeners admitted that human appreciation of their seasonal changes had sparked the first artistic movement in their civilization. The energy beings of the Pulse Commonwealth revealed that human descriptions of their light dances had led to new forms of self-expression. Even the logic-bound calculants acknowledged the human mathematician's ability to find beauty in equations had opened new avenues of theoretical exploration. But not all were convinced. The void hunters, predators who had achieved spaceflight through conquest, radiated hostility. "This is weakness," their pack leader snarled. "Beauty is distraction. Appreciation is vulnerability. If humans spread this softness through the galaxy, we will all fall to the first true threat that emerges." With respect, Marcus said, turning to face the void hunters directly, "You're wrong. Beauty isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the strength to see beyond mere survival, to find meaning beyond conquest. Your species' pack coordination, the way you move as one mind with many bodies, it's breathtaking. Not because it's efficient killing, but because it speaks to bonds that transcend individual self. You're not just predators. You're a family that happens to hunt." The pack leader's hackles rose, but several younger void hunters were looking at each other with something like wonder, seeing their pack bonds through new eyes. The debate raged for hours. Some species demanded that human aesthetic perception be classified and regulated. Others called for formal cultural exchange programs. The thorax suggested, with decreasing conviction, that it might be a prelude to invasion. The melody composed impromptu songs about the beauty of arguing about beauty. Finally, the speaker called for order once more. "The council must reach a decision. The question before us is threefold. First, is human aesthetic perception a threat to galactic stability? Second, should it be regulated or contained? Third, what is our response to the cultural shifts already in progress?" "May I suggest," Marcus said, exhaustion creeping into his voice, but determination still strong, "that you're asking the wrong questions? We couldn't if we tried. It's written into our DNA, carved into our souls, painted on cave walls since before we had language to describe what we were doing. We're the species that looks at the universe and falls in love over and over again with every new face of creation we discover, even if some of those faces have tentacles or exist in non-Euclidean space." The speaker's tone held what might have been amusement. Especially then, Marcus grinned, exhaustion making him a bit giddy. The stranger, the more wonderful. The more different from us, the more it expands our understanding of what beauty can be. Every species in this chamber has taught humanity new ways to see. Now we're just returning the favor. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone had predicted. By a margin of 3, the council decided not to classify human aesthetic perception as a threat requiring containment. Instead, they established the Committee for Aesthetic Understanding, a study group tasked with documenting and understanding the phenomenon, not to control it, but to help species adapt to their new self-perceptions. As the session concluded and beings began to file out, Marcus found himself surrounded by a mixed group of species, all wanting to know more about how humans saw them. He did his best to answer, to explain the unexplainable, to put into words the wordless appreciation that came as naturally to humans as breathing. Zarinel approached as the crowd finally thinned. "You did it," she said, her form glowing with pride and something deeper. "You made them understand." "I don't think I made them understand," Marcus admitted, slumping with exhaustion. "I think I just helped them feel. Understanding might take longer." "Perhaps," she agreed. "But feeling, that's where all change begins. Marcus Chun, you may have just initiated the greatest revolution in galactic history. A revolution of perception. Is that good or bad?" Marcus asked. She considered, her form cycling through contemplative patterns. "Ask me in 100 years. But right now, in this moment, with half the galaxy learning to see themselves as beautiful, it's wonderful." As they left the council chamber together, Marcus noticed the changes were already becoming visible. A group of thorax warriors were examining their reflection in a polished wall, tracing scars with something like pride. 2 void hunters were play fighting, but their movements had taken on an almost dance-like quality, as if they were performing rather than just practicing. A mechany had etched decorative patterns into their chassis, completely non-functional but oddly pleasing. "What have we done?" Marcus murmured. "Started something that can't be stopped," Zarinel replied. "The council can vote, governments can regulate, but you can't make someone unsee their own beauty once they've glimpsed it. The question now is what comes next. Director Patel intercepted them at the human section. Chun, I should either promote you or arrest you. Possibly both. Earth is in uproar. Half the xenosociologists are calling this first contact's greatest success. The other half are predicting the collapse of galactic civilization as we know it. And what do you think, Director? She looked tired but oddly hopeful. I think we've just discovered humanity's purpose in the cosmic ecosystem. We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we might just be the species that helps others fall in love with themselves. And if that's not a contribution worth making, I don't know what is. A message alert chimed on Marcus's communicator. Then another, and another. Soon, the device was overwhelmed with requests, species wanting human aesthetic consultants, worlds asking for cultural exchange programs focused on beauty appreciation, individuals sharing their own stories of self-discovery. It's spreading faster than we can track, Zarnell observed. Like a cognitive virus, but one that builds rather than destroys. The best kind of contagion, Marcus agreed. The kind that makes the universe a little brighter, one perception at a time. They stood together, human and Luminari, watching as the galaxy began the slow, beautiful process of learning to see itself through eyes of wonder. It would be chaotic. It would be challenging. It would fundamentally alter the balance of interspecies relations. But it would also be beautiful. And for humanity, for Marcus, for everyone touched by this strange gift of perception, that was enough. The revolution had begun not with weapons or demands, but with a single accidental compliment. And in the end, that might have been the most human thing of all. Part 4 6 weeks after the council session, Station Kepler 7 had transformed into something unrecognizable. What had once been a model of utilitarian efficiency now bloomed with expressions of beauty from 100 different worlds. The Mechani had started etching intricate patterns into the station's walls, fractals that served no purpose except to delight the eye. Luminari light sculptures turned corridors into galleries. Even the thorax had contributed, their warriors creating martial art demonstrations that were equal parts deadly precision and stunning performance. Marcus stood in his new office. He'd been promoted to senior cultural liaison, a position created specifically to handle the flood of requests for human aesthetic insight, watching the organized chaos of the Bureau of Aesthetic Exchange. Humans from across the galaxy had been recruited to help species discover and express their own beauty. It was overwhelming, exhausting, and absolutely exhilarating. Marcus, his assistant, a young Verdanian named Bloom, rustled into the room. The collective consciousness of Hyalm is on the comm. They want to know if finding beauty in a hive mind's neural patterns is possible when they exist as pure thought. Tell them Sarah Hendricks from Xenoneurology would be perfect for that. She sees symphonies in synaptic firing. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. And make sure she brings the new translation protocols. Abstract beauty needs abstract language. Bloom made a note with one of their vine appendages. In the past weeks, the young Verdanian had begun experimenting with arranging their leaves in aesthetically pleasing patterns, something their species had never considered before. Also, you have a visitor. She says it's personal. Marcus didn't need to ask who. The warm pulse of light from the corridor announced Zurinel's presence before she appeared. But something was different. Her crystalline form, always beautiful, now seemed to consciously direct that beauty, creating patterns designed not just for communication, but for pure artistic expression. Ambassador, Marcus smiled, standing. Though I hear it's high resonance, Zarinel now. Congratulations on the promotion. A promotion earned through chaos, she replied, though her colors suggested pride. The Luminari Collective has had to completely restructure our society. When your entire species suddenly discovers art, someone needs to help channel that energy productively. Any regrets? Marcus asked, gesturing for her sit. None, she said firmly, though I've come to discuss something that might create new ones. Marcus, the changes aren't stopping at aesthetic appreciation. They're going deeper. Marcus leaned forward, concerned. What do you mean? The Void Hunters have started creating pack songs, haunting melodies that celebrate their bonds. They've never had music before. The Calculants are writing poetry in mathematical equations. The Shadowkin are learning to paint with darkness itself. She paused, her form shifting to deeper hues. But more than that, species are beginning to see beauty not just in themselves, but in each other. The aesthetic revolution is becoming something else. Something more. More how? The Thorax Warrior Clan Thunderstrike has commissioned a luminary artist to create a light sculpture celebrating their greatest battle. Not the victory, the sacrifice of the enemy that made the victory meaningful. They want to honor the beauty of their opponent's courage. Her form pulsed with emotion. Marcus, warriors who have defined themselves through conquest for millions of years, are learning to see beauty in their enemies. Do you understand what this means? The weight of it hit Marcus like a physical force. It's changing how species relate to each other. If you see beauty in something, it becomes harder to destroy it. The council is convening again, Zaranel confirmed. Not an emergency session this time, but a formal review. Some species are thrilled. Others are terrified. The Void Hunter's Old Guard is claiming their pack members are being weakened. The numericals worry that aesthetic appreciation is reducing productivity across the galaxy. And everyone wants to know where this ends. Marcus stood and walked to his window, looking out at the transformed station. A group of mixed species, Thorax, Melody, Human, and others, were collaborating on what looked like a performance piece in the Central Plaza. 6 weeks ago, such cooperation would have been unthinkable. I don't think it ends, he said quietly. I think this is how civilization evolves. From survival to cooperation to appreciation. Maybe this is how we become more than the sum of our parts. The council won't see it that way. They'll want projections, controls, limits. Then, we'll have to show them something better than projections. Marcus turned back to her. Zaranel, what if we gave them a demonstration? Not of human perception, but of what happens when species learn to see beauty in each other. Her form brightened with interest. What did you have in mind? Marcus's communicator buzzed before he could answer. Director Patel's face appeared, looking harried but excited. Shouldn't drop everything. We've got a situation brewing at the neutral zone. The Crimson Fleet and the Hegemony Liberation Front are about to go to war over mining rights. The council wants you there. Director, I'm a cultural liaison, not a peace negotiator. You're the human who started an aesthetic revolution. The council thinks maybe you can start another miracle. Ship leaves in an hour. The connection cut, leaving Marcus and Zaranel staring at each other. Well, Zaranel said, her form cycling through amused patterns, it seems the universe wants to test your theory about appreciation preventing destruction. Come with me, Marcus said impulsively. If we're going to try to stop a war with beauty, I could use someone who understands both sides of this revolution. Stop a war with beauty? She laughed, a sound like crystal bells. 6 weeks ago, I would have called that impossibly naive. Now I think it might be the most human idea I've ever heard. An hour later, they were aboard the diplomatic vessel Synthesis, racing toward what could either be the first shots of a devastating war or the next stage of the galaxy's transformation. The crew was an eclectic mix, human aesthetic specialists, luminary artists, even a few reformed Thorax warriors who had embraced what they called the warrior's appreciation of worthy foes. The journey gave Marcus time to review the conflict. The Crimson Fleet, a confederation of former pirates turned legitimate merchants, had claimed an asteroid field rich in rare elements. The Hegemony Liberation Front, freedom fighters from a dozen oppressed worlds, said the field belonged to them by right of first discovery. Both had sent war fleets. Neither seemed inclined to back down. How exactly? Asked Commander Torres, the ship's human captain. Do you plan to make two military forces about to kill each other over resources see beauty in the situation? Marcus wished he had a better answer. I'm hoping inspiration strikes when we get there. That's not exactly reassuring, Torres replied. Welcome to the aesthetic revolution, Zaranel said dryly. We're making it up as we go. When they dropped out of hyperspace at the neutral zone, the situation was worse than the report suggested. Two massive fleets faced each other across the asteroid field, weapons powered and shields raised. The Crimson Fleet's ships were exactly what you'd expect from former pirates. Mismatched vessels held together by determination and creative engineering. The Liberation Front's fleet was equally patchwork, but their ships bore the scars of righteous fury, each mark a testament to oppression overcome. Both fleets are hailing us, the communications officer reported. Put them both on screen, Marcus said. Split view. Two faces appeared. Admiral Rask of the Crimson Fleet, a battle-scarred human whose cybernetic eye whirred as it focused, and General Kthara of the Liberation Front, an insectoid whose compound eyes reflected Marcus's image 1,000 times. The Council sends children and light artists to mediate war? Admiral Rask spat. We have no time for games. The Liberation Front will withdraw, or we will take what is ours by force. The field belongs to those who suffered for it, General Cthara clicked in response. The Crimson Fleet's criminal past does not grant them rights to our future. Marcus took a breath, feeling the weight of everyone watching him. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. You're both absolutely right. The statement caught both commanders off guard. Explain, they said almost in unison. Admiral Rask, your fleet is a masterpiece of survival. Every ship tells a story, stolen, earned, rebuilt from nothing. You've taken the galaxy's cast-offs and discards and turned them into something functional. More than functional, beautiful in its defiance of expectation. Marcus gestured to the screen showing the Crimson Fleet. Do you see it? The way no two ships match, but they move as one? It's like a living demonstration that worth isn't determined by origin, but by what you become. Rask's expression shifted slightly, his organic eye tracking across his own fleet as if seeing it for the first time. And, General Cthara, Marcus continued, your fleet is poetry written in metal and determination. Each blast mark is a stanza about oppression faced and overcome. Your ships aren't just vehicles, they're monuments to every being who said no more and meant it. The Liberation Front hasn't just gathered a fleet. You've assembled a testament to the unconquerable nature of hope. The insectoid general's antennae twitched, compound eyes shifting to examine her own forces with new perspective. But here's what I find most beautiful, Marcus said, warming to his theme. Two groups who the galaxy dismissed, who were told they were worthless, criminals, and the oppressed, have both risen to claim their place among the stars. You're not enemies. You're mirrors, reflecting different paths to the same destination. Respect, legitimacy, a future for your people. Pretty words won't fill empty holds, Admiral Rask growled, but there was less venom in it. No, but they might reveal a truth you're missing. Zaranel stepped forward, her form creating a light display that painted both fleets in complementary colors. What do you see when you look at that asteroid field? Resources, both commanders said. Look deeper, she urged. See it through human eyes, or better, through eyes learning to appreciate beauty. What else is there? There was a long pause. Then, from the Liberation Front side, a younger voice spoke up. It's like a garden of stones. The way they orbit, the way the light from the binary stars makes them glow. Valuable stones, Admiral Rask emphasized. But then, grudgingly, though there's something to the pattern, reminds me of the scattered islands of my homeworld before the water rose. A reminder of home for you, Marcus said gently. And, for the Liberation Front, freedom, General Cthara said softly. Open space that belongs to no empire, no oppressor. A place to build something new. So, the question becomes, Marcus said, do you destroy beauty for resources? Or do you find a way to share both the beauty and the wealth? Share. Both commanders sounded skeptical. The asteroid field is vast. Zaranel displayed a holographic map. More than enough for both fleets to prosper. But what if you did more than just divide it? What if you created something unprecedented? Marcus picked up the thread. A joint mining operation. The Crimson Fleet's experience in navigating dangerous space. The Liberation Front's determination to build better futures. Not just sharing resources, but sharing expertise. Creating something neither could achieve alone. Impossible, General Cthara clicked. We have nothing in common. Don't you? Marcus asked. Admiral Rask, why did your people turn from piracy? The human admiral was quiet for a moment. Because we wanted our children to inherit more than running and fighting. We wanted to build something lasting. And, General Cthara, what drives the Liberation Front? The dream that our offspring will know freedom we never had. That they will build rather than tear down. Same dream, Marcus said simply. Different starting points, same destination. And if you really look at each other, you'll see that beauty. What followed was one of the longest silences Marcus had ever endured. Both fleets maintained combat readiness, but neither moved. On the bridges visible through the communication screens, he could see crew members looking at their counterparts with new eyes. Finally, Admiral Rask laughed, a rough, disbelieving sound. You're asking pirates and freedom fighters to see beauty in each other and share treasure because of it. Boy, do you have any idea how insane that sounds? About as insane as a human accidentally starting a galactic revolution by calling someone stunning, Marcus admitted. But here we are. The Council would recognize such an arrangement? General Kthara asked. The Council would probably throw a parade. Director Patel's voice came through the comm she'd been monitoring from the ship. Do you have any idea how much they'd save on peacekeeping if species started resolving conflicts through shared appreciation? More silence. Then, slowly, weapons began powering down. Not all at once. Trust built on beauty was still fragile, but enough to step back from the brink. We would need guarantees, General Kthara said. Protections, ensuring neither side dominates. And profit sharing that reflects risk, Admiral Rask added. Beauty doesn't pay for ship repairs. But it might pay for something more valuable, Zaranel suggested. A new model for resource disputes. Instead of destruction, collaboration. Instead of conquest, co-creation. The galaxy is watching. Show them that even the fiercest enemies can find common ground in shared beauty. The negotiations that followed were complex, sometimes heated, but they happened. As terms were discussed and agreements drafted, something else began to occur. Members of both fleets started really looking at each other. A Crimson Fleet engineer admired the ingenious patch jobs on Liberation Front vessels. A Liberation Front pilot expressed appreciation for the coordinated flight patterns of the former pirates. You're doing it again, Zaranel murmured to Marcus as they watched the two fleets slowly, carefully, begin to integrate their patrol patterns around the asteroid field, making people see beauty where they expected to find enemies. It's not me, Marcus said. I just pointed out. The beauty was always there, waiting to be noticed. Days later, when the joint mining operation was officially established, both fleets held a ceremony. It wasn't planned. Someone on the Crimson Fleet started broadcasting music, and the Liberation Front responded with their own freedom songs. Soon, ships from both fleets were creating a synchronized light show with their running lights, turning the asteroid field into a canvas of cooperation. The image was broadcast across the galaxy. Former pirates and freedom fighters dancing their ships through space, creating beauty where there might have been destruction. The caption on the broadcast read, "Human aesthetic contagion claims its latest victims, war and hatred." Back on Station Kepler 7, the transformation had accelerated. The Void Hunters had started a cross-species pack that included prey species, teaching them to hunt ideas instead of flesh. The Mechani were collaborating with organic species to create cyborg art that celebrated the fusion of life and technology. Even the Shadowkin had emerged from their dimensional hiding places to share their perspective on beauty in darkness. It's spreading beyond anything we imagined, Director Patel told Marcus in a debriefing. Earth is being flooded with requests for aesthetic advisors. Other species are developing their own aesthetic traditions and sharing them. The Melody have taught the Thorax to find beauty in sound. The Verdanians are helping the Mechani appreciate organic growth patterns. It's become a genuine exchange, not just humans teaching others. That's how it should be, Marcus said. Beauty isn't humanity's monopoly. We just happen to be the species that remember to point it out. A message arrived from the Galactic Council. Not a summons this time, but an invitation. They were establishing the Institute of Aesthetic Sciences, dedicated to studying and nurturing the appreciation of beauty across species lines. They wanted Marcus to help lead it. You'll accept, Saranel asked. She'd been spending more time in the human sector, working on collaborative art projects that fused human perception with luminary light sculpting. I don't know, Marcus admitted. Institutionalizing beauty feels wrong somehow, like trying to cage a sunrise. Or, she suggested, like creating a garden where beauty can grow wild but tended, not controlled but nurtured. Before Marcus could respond, his communicator chimed with an urgent message. He read it, then read it again, his expression shifting from surprise to wonder. What is it? Saranel asked. The Absolute Concordance, Marcus said, naming the oldest civilization in known space, being so advanced they barely interacted with younger species. They're requesting a meeting. They want to understand how humans taught the galaxy to see itself as beautiful. The concordance hasn't initiated contact in 1,000 years. Zarinel's form blazed with shock. What could they want with human aesthetics? Marcus thought about it, then smiled. Maybe even the oldest, most advanced beings in the universe want to be told they're beautiful. Maybe everyone does, no matter how evolved or powerful or ancient. As if in response to his words, a ship appeared in the system, not arriving through hyperspace, but simply existing where it hadn't been before. It was, without question, the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. But more than its appearance was what it represented. Even gods among the stars wanted to understand the simple human gift of seeing beauty in existence. The aesthetic revolution wasn't ending. If anything, it was just beginning to reveal its true scope. And at the center of it all was the fundamental truth Marcus had stumbled onto with a single accidental compliment. In a universe full of wonders, perhaps the greatest wonder was the ability to recognize wonder in others. The galaxy would never be the same. And for once, that was unquestionably a change for the better. Hashtag Part 5. The Absolute Concordance's vessel hung in space like a living contradiction, simultaneously there and not there, ancient beyond measure, yet eternally new. Marcus stood on the observation deck of Station Kepler 7, trying to process what he was seeing. The ship seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, its form shifting between states of matter and energy in ways that made his eyes water. It's like trying to look at the concept of beauty itself, Zarinel whispered beside him, her own form flickering in sympathetic resonance with the impossible vessel. Director Patel stood on Marcus's other side, for once at a loss for words. Around them, beings from every species on the station had gathered, drawn by the presence of legends made real. The Concordance had withdrawn from galactic affairs when most current civilizations were still evolving in primordial oceans. Their return, prompted by humanity's aesthetic revolution, had implications no one could fully grasp. A figure materialized on the station, not transported, but assembled from local atoms into a shape that could interact with lesser beings. The Concordance representative was paradoxically simple, a vaguely humanoid form of pure white light, features suggested rather than defined. When it spoke, the words bypassed ears entirely, appearing directly in consciousness. Marcus Chun, the being said, and somehow the naming felt like being truly seen for the first time. We have observed. The transformation you initiated spreads beyond physical space into realms of consciousness we thought sealed. We must understand. I'm honored, Marcus managed, but I'm not sure I understand it myself. I just told someone they were beautiful. Yes, the concordance being pulsed with something that might have been amusement. The simplicity is what makes it remarkable. We have watched civilizations rise and fall for eons. We have seen species master physics, transcend mortality, reshape reality itself. But this teaching beings to perceive their own beauty, this is new. They were transported, Marcus, Zarinel, and surprisingly a handful of others from various species, to a space within the Concordance vessel. It wasn't a room so much as a pocket of existence tailored for communication. Stars wheeled overhead, but they were stars from every era of the universe, past and future combined into a tapestry of time. We withdrew from younger species because we believed we had nothing left to offer or receive. The being continued. We had transcended physical needs, emotional attachments, even aesthetic appreciation. Beauty became irrelevant when you can reshape reality at will. Or so we thought. What changed? Asked the HKEK, the Void Hunter Pack leader whose people had been transformed by learning to see beauty in their bonds. The concordance being shifted, and for a moment, Marcus glimpsed something beneath the perfect white exterior. Loneliness as vast as space itself. You did. All of you. When humans began teaching others to see beauty, the effects rippled through dimensions you cannot perceive. We felt it in our crystallized perfection, a vibration, a warming, a yearning. The being paused, seeming to struggle with concepts it hadn't voiced in millennia. We realized that in transcending appreciation of beauty, we had not evolved. We had merely forgotten. And forgetting beauty, we had forgotten how to truly exist rather than merely persist. Zeph of the Crystalline Network chimed in, their form resonating with understanding. You want to remember. You want humans to teach you what you've lost. Not just humans, the being corrected. What Marcus Chun began has evolved beyond a single species gift. Each race now teaches others new ways to perceive beauty. The thorax find glory in survival. The melody hear colors. The shadow can paint with absence itself. We want to learn from all of you. But first, we must understand the origin point. All attention turned to Marcus, who felt the weight of eons focusing on him. I don't know if it can be taught through explanation. Beauty, human perception of it, it's not a technique or a technology. It's more like breathing. If breathing could reshape how you see the universe, then show us. The being said simply, look at us, truly look, and speak what you see. Marcus studied the concordance representative, pushing past the perfect white exterior to what lay beneath. At first, all he saw was power, evolution so complete it had nowhere left to go. But then, like adjusting focus, he began to perceive more. I see. He started slowly. A species that loved existence so much they tried to become one with it. You didn't just evolve. You crafted yourselves into living ideas, walking philosophies. But in becoming everything, you lost the joy of being something specific, unique, flawed. He stepped closer to the being. You're not just ancient gods. You're artists who've forgotten why they create. And that forgetting, it's beautiful too, in its way. The most evolved beings in the universe discovering they still have something to learn. That's the most hopeful thing I've ever seen. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. The concordance being's perfect white form cracked. Not with damage, but with color, as if Marcus's words had shattered a shell of enforced perfection. Beneath was light of every spectrum, emotions given form that had been suppressed for cosmic ages. Around them, the pocket dimension rippled as other concordants joined their representative, each one showing fractures of brilliant imperfection. We had calculated everything. The first being said, its voice now carrying harmonics of wonder and confusion. Predicted the heat death of a universe, mapped every possible future, solved the equations of existence itself. But we never calculated for this, for someone to find us beautiful not despite our flaws, but because of them. That's humanity's gift, Zarnell said, her own form pulsing in sympathy with the transformed concordance. They see beauty in imperf.